Build different finance, helping you plan your future.
Welcome, everyone, to Built Different Finance. This channel is dedicated to helping individuals, families, and even business owners think differently about money. Our goal is to empower you and equip you with the tools to make smart financial decisions and create a strong future for the next generation. To kick things off over the next several weeks, we'll be speaking with industry experts as we respond to some of people's most pressing questions. So, whether you want to break out of the paycheck to paycheck lifestyle or you want to protect what you've worked so hard for all these years to build, if you believe your family's future should be built different, you're in the right place. Welcome. So, please share, subscribe, turn on that bell for notifications, and by all means, ask questions. My info will be in the description. Let's get started and get you on your future. Let's start our episode. Hey, everybody. Today we are joined by Roger Lobigan. He's a financial professional who specializes in helping families navigate different moments like this as we've talked a little bit about being laid off but not lost. So, welcome, Roger Lobigan. He's the CEO of 300 Leadership Development. Super excited to see you today. Thanks for hopping on.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So this is perfect timing, and I have just a few things we wanted to get your input on to be able to help people out there who are in this situation. So, Roger, when you see someone is laid off unexpectedly, what do you usually see emotionally, and how does this affect their financial decisions?
That's a really great question, and it's important to understand that life has its ebbs and flows and ups and downs. And one of the things that my wife and I and our family practice is something called respond, don't react. Right? So most people react to their situations versus respond. So I think a reaction is like your knee-jerk reaction, and if you see a mountain lion on a hike, your initial reaction is to be scared, to be fearful. Those who respond think, right? They think critically. All right, what are our options? What do we have in the bank? Right? Do we have to deplete our resources? And unfortunately, people have these knee-jerk, fearful reactions, and it's important to slow down and evaluate. Like what's the circumstances? Like did we get a severance? What's lined up? It's really important not to panic because when we're emotionally distraught or panicking, it's very easy to make decisions that we might regret down the road, right? And so take a breather, take a break, and look at the reality that you might actually, it's kind of cool. You might have a week vacation or a 2 week vacation or 3 week. You get to determine it's like, wow, at one point you were working 40, 50, 60 hours a week and now you're not. And it might seem scary, but maybe this is what you were praying for subconsciously, So
Yeah.
that's what I would say.
Definitely. Like we talk about sometimes, don't panic, but pivot. And it's a good pivot point for people, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
what would you say is the biggest financial mistake people make in the first 30, maybe 60 days of being laid off?
Yeah, absolutely. So, just in my experience, helping different families, what I've noticed is um, they'll start trimming the fat, right? Trimming the fat of what they have, but sometimes it's not the fat. Sometimes it's the meat, right? So, when you're looking at your finances, it's important to understand like what's needed and what's optional. Right? You go to your Netflix accounts and your Disney Plus accounts and your Hulu accounts. I think the average American has like 10 to 12 subscriptions now, and you're spending $300 to $400 a month. I mean, that's $400 a month that can go to groceries, right?
Mhm.
Versus, cutting those things that like depleting your 401k, right? Just because like,
Right.
oh, I have to make rent. So one of the things that my wife and I do is, we in the past, I mean, we were out of college, and 2008 happened, and we were losing our home. So one thing we did, we started calling credit card companies and say, hey, you know what? We're in dire financial circumstances. Is there any way we can pause payments? Any way we can lower interest rates? Hey, can you waive this fee, and call your bank, call your mortgage company, ask what they can do, right? The last thing you want to do is start depleting your nest egg and your financial foundation. So those are the couple of the biggest mistakes I've seen, is that people start cutting out what's really important. Sometimes it's their life insurance policy, sometimes it's their healthcare benefits. And yes, Cobra is really, really expensive, but there's options out there, right? There's
Yeah.
options out there. So that's what I would say.
Those are really good points. I don't think people think about that. You know,
Yeah.
Trimming the meat, right? We got to be thoughtful about that. One thing that you hit on was 401ks. So when someone's laid off, what kind of choices do they actually have regarding those?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, when you have a 401k, what I've noticed is people just let it sit there. So you do have a couple options. You just leave it there, right? And then your employer will typically tell you like, hey, you can't leave it here. You're no longer employed. You got to move it somewhere, typically to a some type of Roth IRA or IRA or whatnot, right? So, now there are a couple options to roll your money over into a different, savings program and whatnot, and that's what I would suggest, so you can have
Okay.
more of a clear picture of what you want your financial outlook to look like, so you have more control. When you have a 401k, they give you a couple options. They give you target date funding, meaning like, your risk class lowers as you get older, but as you near retirement, your risk class decreases, right? So a couple other options is you would do a rollover. Now, rollover is just a non-taxable event. You're just moving money from one account to another. And what do you roll your money over into? There's a lot of different options, right? There's traditional IRA accounts, there's brokerage accounts, and then there's something called annuities, right? Now, in the class of annuities, there's a bunch of different type of annuities. Annuities traditionally are variable annuities. They go up and down with the market. Then there's something called fixed index annuities, which are kind of my favorite because they let you participate in the gains of the market, but anytime the market crashes, you're protected. So imagine having uninterrupted compound interest, right? Uninterrupted compound interest meaning you can only go up, you never go down. Interrupted compound interest is where you gain all this interest in your account, and all of a sudden in 2008, 2001, 2020 happens, and all your
Mhm.
gains are erased in a single month or a single
Oh,
year,
wow.
right? So
Yeah.
you want to put your money in accounts where you have the upside, but you are protected from the downside of the market. So that's what I would suggest.
Oh, that's awesome. I like that there's a lot of choices, you know. You can really be able to
Hmm.
help people to figure out what is the best thing to do. And I know you mentioned health insurance. I know we have a lot of business partners we can refer people to because those Cobra plans are outrageous, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, one more
mhm.
thing, if I can mention this, and I've seen
Yeah.
this several times. I had a client who was trying to figure out what they wanted to do with their money. They decided to buy a home. They had about $230,000 in their 401k. They just retired, you
Mhm.
know, and unfortunately, no one really educated this family about how taxes work on a 401k. And when you liquidate 401k and you cash it out, every single dollar is counted as income. So imagine, she was making close to like 60, $70,000 a year. And all of a sudden in one year, she goes from a 60 to $70,000 tax bracket to a 200, actually $300,000 tax bracket,
Wow.
right? So she hopped from like a 22% tax bracket to now she's like in the upper echelon in the 30 plus percentage tax bracket. So when she got hit, right, she wasn't expecting to get hit so hard by the IRS, but she owed a lot of money by the end of the year. So that's something to be aware of if you do decide to cash out. And there's also something called the RMD, the early withdrawal distribution penalty. If you pull
Mhm.
out before 59 and a half, you don't incur just taxes, but you also incur a 10% penalty of what you take out. So that's something to be extremely aware of. So she got hit by the 10% penalty, but also got hit by by those income taxes as well, federal and state,
Oh,
federal and state.
wow.
So
Yeah,
10% penalty, federal and state.
yeah. Yeah, I really don't think people think about the tax implications when things like this happen, you know?
Yeah.
And then you're just so used to putting your 401k back into a 401k. And that's a lot to know just about how those taxes are really affected in those policies. So you
Yeah.
talked a little bit about it. I know people have life insurance with their companies. And then when they don't have that job anymore, a lot of people don't realize those go away. When thinking about this conversation and trying to maybe protect your money a little bit from those taxes, where do IUL or Index Universal Life policies fall in line with this?
Yeah, yeah, good question. So, the way I look at financial products is the same way I look at a toolbox, right? So, if I ask for a hammer, you're not gonna hand me a screwdriver, right? If I'm looking for a flathead Phillips, and you hand me a some pliers, I'm gonna be kind of upset, So every tool serves a different purpose, right? Healthcare, through a company serves a purpose, right? If you get sick, you can go to Kaiser Permanente, pay a 20 to 30, $40 copay and get seen, right? Your emergency visits aren't going to be thousands of dollars, right? You're usually gonna get a bill for like maybe 100, $200, and those major operations you'll get covered to a certain extent, right? So healthcare is extremely important, right? They protect you from going bankrupt, right? And so those are extremely important. So that's healthcare, right? And when it's lost by an employer, it's important to understand your options, right? So I'm not the healthcare expert when it comes to that stuff, but there's the marketplace. You could talk to an advisor who will, talk about the different options, right? And the one thing that you
Impact
will be
share.
doing,
Yeah.
yeah, oh yeah, exactly. There's health sharing accounts, there's MedShare, right? And those are typically outside your employer, so those are
Mhm.
great. So whether your employer lays you off or not, or
Yeah.
like that's something you could purchase on your own, right? So
Mhm.
now IULs, which I like, are extremely, awesome because they're very, very versatile, right? So, Universal Life policies are life insurance first and foremost, but they have all these different bells and whistles attached to them, right?
Mhm.
So, number one, you can build cash. So, I had a client who was laid off for about 6 months, and they had an IUL with me, and they called me up to say, "Hey, Roger, like I'm in between jobs right now. I need to lower my payments." And I said, "Hey, you know what? I could do you one better. I can pause your payments for right now."
Mm.
So
Okay.
it's been a year and a half. Hasn't made a payment since.
Wow.
Policy stays active.
That's
That's
awesome.
like having a home and not paying your mortgage for like 18 months
Yeah.
and still being able. Who would like that?
Yeah.
Like,
I
hey,
would.
like keep your
That'd be
home.
great.
Yeah. Like 18 months.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? Hey, I'm the bank. I notice you're not making any payments. You don't have to make another payments for another 18 months, but at the 18 month, you just got to restart payments again. Man,
Okay.
that's a breather. So
Okay.
it builds up cash, right? Another thing is, if you get sick, right, that's extremely, it's our health is wealth. And if you don't, if you don't believe health is wealth, get injured, right? Get sick. And
Mm.
all of a sudden, if you
Mhm.
can't go to work, your income stops. But
Yeah.
even though your income stops, does your kids still have to eat, right? Their mortgage still have to get paid. So critical, chronic, and terminal illness riders, and then also long-term care riders allow you to access the death benefit while you're still alive. Right. So that's extremely
Wow.
important. That could
Good deal.
supplement your income. It can replace your income so you don't have to worry about and stress about different things, right? So
Mhm.
that's how an IUL works. And if the unforeseen or the unexpected or the what we don't want to happen, if we ever pass, you're leaving this. By the way, I didn't mention this, all of it is tax free because it's built
Oh,
into a life insurance policy.
okay.
So that's extremely
Right.
important. You don't have to worry about Uncle Sam trying to take some money from you, right? So that's kind of how an IUL works. So I wouldn't say it's a replacement for healthcare, but it's definitely an enhancement to what you already have.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Those are so many great points that you made, but I'm sure a lot of people, watching this, if they're in that situation, they're feeling a little bit overwhelmed. What's the
Yeah.
first step you would say, like a proactive step that they could take to put themselves in a good situation right now?
Yeah, yeah, good question. Good question. So I think there's one thing that many Americans have a tough time doing these days, which is to sit still.
Mm,
right? Pause,
mhm,
breathe, right? Um, they don't call it scrolling now, they call it doom scrolling,
yeah.
right? We let our mind wander.
Mhm,
But we actually don't let our mind wander the way it's supposed to wander. I think when our mind wanders, it's actually looking for answers, right? But when you're
mhm.
scrolling, you're being fed answers.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of times when you just sit still and you reflect, and like my wife and I, we go to church, we pray together, we have scriptures. So we're always trying to get our mind in alignment with God's purpose.
Mhm.
And we say things like, it didn't happen to us, it happened for us.
Ah,
So maybe
good.
this layoff, maybe this termination was not a bad thing, but maybe it was God saying, "Hey, I'm going to take this away from you and I'm going to give you something better." But
I
because we
love
were
that.
so
Yeah.
attached to that past or to whatever it was,
Mhm.
we think, "Oh my gosh, my life is falling apart." And my wife and I, we've gone through it. We've lost a home, we've lost
Mhm.
two homes, we've lost we've lost jobs. My wife has health issues. I have ADHD. My wife has depression, and we have four kids. So if we are always reacting, our life is chaotic, right? But one thing I know is this, right? The enemy always wants to steal your peace because it's where peace is where God speaks to you. All right.
Oh,
God speaks to
mhm.
you in the
Yeah.
peace. So if you could find peace, God will speak to you. He will give you answers. And you know what? You're not the only one. You're
Right.
not the only one. You're
Yeah.
probably there's probably people out there who've been laid off and left companies left and right. And sometimes you just gotta ask them, hey, what do you do in this situation? What in your experience, like how has life turned out? And you'll
Mm.
notice life is still gonna move forward.
Yeah.
God's good, right?
Yes.
There's a
All the
greater
time, right?
purpose, and the way I like to look at it is as like Job's life. First half not so good, second half better half,
Yeah.
right? Second
Yeah.
half better half, right? So that's what I would
Definitely.
say.
Awesome. I love that. Breathing life into it. So, I like what you said. Being laid off really doesn't have to define your future, but how you
No.
respond financially can kind of shape it. So, can you speak on that a little bit and anything that you would recommend?
Yeah, yeah. Great question. Great question. So, when it comes to um failures in life, and I have this saying, fail and mail, right? When you feel like you're failing, right, or you feel like you've been challenged, fail is an acronym for first attempt in learning, right? So you got to
Mhm.
ask yourself, what lesson am I learning right now? And the thing about God is God will give you the same lesson again and again and again and again until you learn from it, right? And that's where I came up with the acronym MAIL, multiple attempts in learning, right? Fail and mail, multiple
Yeah,
attempts in learning. And,
good.
if you ever, like, my wife and I have been married for, I think, 17 years now. And there
Congratulations.
was times where we felt like, man, we just keep hitting the same bump again and again and again and again. And what I
Mhm.
noticed was this: God was not trying to change our circumstances or situation. He was trying to get our attention so we could change
Wow.
internally, right? So
Okay.
you
Good.
gotta, look at problems in a perspective, saying like, if I'm dealing with the same problems I was dealing with a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, have I really changed? Right? Because problems are a part of life. Your
Mhm.
problems should be different a year from now. Your
Mhm.
problems should be different 3 years from now, 4 years. But why? Because you are a different person. You're a different person. So I would look at, this stage or this moment in your life not as a defining moment for you, but just a moment to learn, right? What does God want to teach me in
Yeah,
this situation, right?
for sure.
Where can I grow? So
Hmm.
hope that helps.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Roger, for your time. As I said, people are going through these things, and it is time to, instead of panicking, which is our first response, to pivot. So thank you so much for that perspective on what to do. Really appreciate it. God focused, God centered. And if anybody's out there now and they're having this problem and they want to know kind of how to navigate and what things they could do, please, I'll put my information in the comments, and please reach out to me. Thank you again, Roger. And I really appreciate you hopping on the first episode. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.